Welcome to Nonsense, Season 3, Episode 8.
It's so weird. Where are the lights? Where is everybody? I don't understand.
This is a very stripped-down version of Nonsense. We're calling it Nonsense Unplugged.
There's not a lot more stripping down we could have really done to the show.
I'm traveling shortly, so there's literally there wasn't time to even set up a console.
I saw that.
So it's literally just two microphones and a record button today.
When I walked up, your Uber was waiting out front for you, so apparently you're in a bit of a hurry.
Well, I have to go to a birthday party, but then I'm traveling after that, so very, very busy week anyway. And I'm trying to do the work that I will have to do while I will be traveling as well. So I'm severely impacted. My apologies. However, I've kind of wanted to experiment with the Nonsense format a little bit anyway.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on possibly breaking it up into two shows?
Sure.
One that's the news segment and then one that's the more research segment.
Okay, well, that's not what I thought you were going to say. What I thought you were going to say was let's break it up into two shows, one that you do and one that I do, and then the people can just pick what they want. And I was like, oh, I guess that kind of makes sense. Mine will just be a lot of sadness, me talking about air traffic control, and yours will just be air flyers. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I hear from most of our listeners and friends is that they really would like to hear more of us. So I'm sure two shows would be great.
I'm not thinking the length of the show that we do normally. I'm thinking cut that show in half. So you're going to get two 22-minute shows or whatever it works out to be. Okay. It's never going to be that perfect.
Look, so I got to drive to your house twice a week now?
And have donuts twice a week, though.
Oh, boy. Can I call my doctor first and ask him? Because I'm pretty sure he's going to frown upon the extra donut consumption.
How close to diabetes are we?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more than diabetic adjacent, I believe. Yeah, I think this would be interesting. I do miss the music. It's a little weird to start without the music, but I'm going to get over it.
I have no idea if this is going to work or not. We'll get feedback from listeners and just hear how bad this bare version of the show.
If one thing is true, they will tell us. They will absolutely tell us and not wait.
By the way, we didn't say this part. Let's do this. Yeah. I'm Jeff Parker.
I'm CJ Little.
There you go. This is our take on the week's business, tech, and entertainment headlines. This time it's Nonsense Unplugged. Okay, we settled that. Yeah. By the way, speaking of entertainment headlines, as part of our thing, we always say business, tech, and entertainment.
Tech and entertainment.
Everybody complained about how long the Oscar talk went on last time.
I know. The one time every 12 episodes we talk about something entertainment related, they're just like, no, too much of that. Like, all right, we'll take it out.
Shorten that down to, Oscar's good. Now move on. Get away from that.
Oscars. That was the show, the thing, with Conan. Which, by the way, for the people that thought the Oscar segment was too long last time, let me bring it back up. I finally got around to watching Conan's Open. One, I thought it was great.
So good.
Two, everyone bitched about his little musical segment.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cute.
Oh, no.
I thought it was cute, short. It was kind of funny.
I was on the first list.
It was so Conan, though. That was such a Conan and Simpsons, just all let's do a full show. Let's have Deadpool come out and then we'll end it. And it'll all be about wasting your time. So Conan.
There you go. And by the way, that's what people think of this when we talk about entertainment. So I'm going to move us forward. This is National Science and Engineering Week.
Oh, yeah, that's right. This is like the week.
This is the week. It's a time to transform scientific concepts into immersive experiences, a time to pull on your favorite lab coat and strap on some safety goggles. This week is an ideal opportunity to learn more about the incredible world of science. This annual celebration will help quench your thirst for science and engineering.
I mean, I heard you say pull on your favorite lab coat and strap on, and I had one eyebrow go up, but then you said safety goggles, that eyebrow just came right back down. So, okay, I'm glad we're still the show we were before. I didn't know what kind of changes you had in store.
Also, Pie Day is Friday.
Oh, Pie Day's tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So be sure and get a nice slice of pie.
I gotta believe the Venn diagram of people that know Pie Day listen to our show completely overlap.
Oh, sure.
But for those that don't know, Pi everywhere but Indiana is 3.14, and tomorrow is March 14th, which is 3/14, therefore Pi Day. Unless you're in Indiana.
In Indiana, do they celebrate Pi Day on 3/10?
3/1? No, 3/1. March 1st. So like Pi Day in Indiana, and you fucking idiots.
How's your week going?
Well, now I don't even know what's coming. I usually know how this show works. Jeff and I have known each other a long time. Do you remember right after we got our ham licenses and we went to that ham radio meetup group?
Oh, yeah.
Where like the average age in the room was like Phoenix in July, somewhere in like the low 120s.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Right?
But it was fun. That was really fun.
I ran into all those same guys again this weekend.
At a graveyard?
I took my dad and kids.
They're long gone. There's no way they're still alive.
I took my dad and kids to see the Great Train Show in Ventura over the weekend. And the average age was somewhere in like the mid hundreds.
Oh, I'm sure.
This is the nation's largest traveling model train show. So you got like all these table trains and vendors and displays. It was actually really cool. The model trains is not my thing at all. My dad loves model trains. When he was a kid, he was a 027 scale guy, from the 50s.
Sure.
I thought it was cool though to see how not only like today's children still light up around trains. Like trains are still as enjoyable to little kids as they ever were. And the only people in that place smiling more than the kids were like the octogenarians.
Sure.
They just couldn't stop smiling.
Yeah.
And there were a whole bunch of younger people there operating the displays. And by younger, I mean like 30s, 40s, 50s. I was like, oh, this is like a hobby that has kind of carried on and not gone the way of the dodo. So it was really cool.
I think for kids, there ought to be maglev trains.
That would be awesome.
That would be great, right?
I mean,
you could make a toy maglev train. It's not impossible. You could certainly scale it.
Which would be great until my kids run across the nonsense hard drive and pull it across the maglev train, and then all of a sudden there's no more show recordings anymore.
Now it's erased.
Now it's all gone. It was super fun.
That's great.
We had a blast. It was a good time to see. How about you? How was your week?
Like the measles, my super contagious diseases spread to my pool.
Uh-oh.
I'm knee deep in automating the pumps, the lights, the air blowers. Everything is actually they make it fairly easy now. You buy a kit from a manufacturer, and everything is going to be part of the smart home. It's all connecting into Home Assistant, which is great.
Did you think 2025 earlier or later was going to be the year that your pool got an IP address? When did you think that was going to happen in your life?
I'm shocked it didn't happen before now.
Yeah.
But really, it's like making the house smart. I just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off.
Yeah.
And this has really been the year that I've kind of embraced it.
I do kind of walk around my house just going, for $3, they could put an ESP32 in that and I could control it remotely. Like,
yes.
My toaster oven was like, whatever, $400, and it has no protocol.
Yeah.
It has 2 knobs.
And before we get to our headlines, we've got spring break upon us, so we won't have a show for you next week.
Unfortunately, this means I have to spend that time with my kids.
I think that'll be nice.
The first week of April, we're going to miss too, because there's some more travel-y bullshit. So we're going to miss 2 weeks of the next couple, I believe.
Sure. I keep calling this a truncated episode. It's not truncated.
Oh, yeah. We still want to get all our time in.
It's just simplified. It's just a very simplified episode.
Yeah, we're just lazy, I think is what he's saying. We don't want to not talk.
We're going to do 4 headlines, and that's going to be the entire show. We have 4 news stories, and that's it.
I love that you think when we split the show up, it's going to somehow be the same total time. You and I are going to suck the same amount of oxygen out of the room. I don't understand. You give me 2 slots, each one's going to be an hour. Like, that's how this is going to work.
Shall we go to the headlines?
We better do it soon.
What recession? U.S. EV sales are up 28% this year.
Yeah, that's impressive, especially given the decrease in Tesla.
Teslas have fallen off a cliff.
Yeah.
Look around the world, not just the United States. The sales of Teslas have just...
Toonces is driving Tesla?
Toonces, exactly.
Right off the cliff?
Exactly. This story is interesting because with all the announcements from automakers planning for more gasoline and hybrid cars in their future lineups, you'd think the electric vehicles had stopped selling.
Yeah.
Now, this might be pull forward, people fearing that the tax incentives are going to go away.
So you're just pulling future sales forward that would otherwise buy because, they don't know if the tax incentives are going to go away. Sure.
However, I don't see any signs necessarily that the tax incentives are going away. And with Elon Musk as close as he is to the president right now, that may not happen.
Well, I'm assuming that the tax incentives will stay, but they'll only apply to vehicles that start with the letter T.
That could be it.
That would be my assumption.
I understand we're going to make it a domestic terrorism if you harm a Tesla dealership. However, if you go and harm a Toyota dealership, it's just
fine. It's fine. Well, first of all, I love that you said Tesla dealership. Like, aren't there not Tesla dealerships? Isn't that not a thing?
They have showrooms.
In the mall?
Somebody threw a Molotov cocktail in one of these things.
Yeah, sure. That's terrible.
I'm on board with you and your frustration with Elon Musk.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Don't do that. But I also love these things are like at malls. Like if you're like, fuck Orange Julius, you like throw a Molotov cocktail at Dairy Queen. Like, what are you like? No, that's not okay. There's a little box in front. Put a little note on it. Drop it in.
All right. This is only one of 4 stories, so we're going to move forward. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it. What's next?
Music labels are coming after the Internet Archive. On Thursday, music labels sought to add nearly 500 more sound recordings to a lawsuit accusing the Internet Archive of mass copyright infringement through its Great 78 project, which seeks to digitize all 3 million 3-minute recordings published on 78 revolution per minute records from about 1898 to the 1950s.
Yep, those Internet Archive guys, they're the bad ones.
They are out for bad things.
They're the guys you got to go after.
They are stealing things left and right.
Well, they already sued Wikipedia, so they already figured they got that out of the way. Who else is adding value at no revenue on the internet?
I don't care if you have revenue or not. That doesn't really matter. But it doesn't give you the right to distribute copyrighted material.
They're not distributing it. They're not advertising it for profit. They're saying
they don't have to advertise it. They don't have to make profit. They can't give it away for free.
But all they're saying is, hey, there's all these recordings that are dying, that are going to go back into the earth.
Sure.
We're trying to preserve them and really provide a research platform. Yes.
And do that. Put them on a hard drive, put them in a closet, and when their copyright expires, put them out to the world.
For anyone who's looking for archive advice, please don't take Jeff's, put it on a hard drive and put it in a closet. And then just hope that it'll be fine when you come back and look at it in 30 years. That's not the best. What you need to do is put it on the punch card. You put it all on the punch card, store that in the closet, and then you'll be fine. Okay, that's what you want to do.
That's great.
I understand your point. Your point is that these, every one of these had at some point and may still have an active copyright.
A valid active copyright.
Yes, and
there are going to be songs that have been abandoned where there's no longer any errors and things like that. Fine.
Sure.
Go nuts. Enjoy those.
Like Baby Got Back. Abandoned.
Is that abandoned?
No one's going to enjoy that. I doubt it. I highly doubt it.
I totally doubt it. That's probably worth a lot of money.
I was going to say that's paying for somebody's lunch as we speak. But the point here is these guys have Internet Archive.
Yeah.
has tried to organize a bunch of people, a bunch of archivists that are digitizing these things. I listened to several of these.
I did too.
They're really good.
They're great.
They're really, really good.
Especially the really, really old ones whose copyrights are available. There were some of those that I listened to and I just went, this is great music.
And they seem to be, I haven't read the documents in the lawsuit. They seem to be standing behind, they being the Internet Archive, behind some part of the Music Modernization Act, which was put in law in 2018, that says as a library, you can provide works that are kind of commercially unavailable. And that seems to be where they're standing. However, there are certainly works they have in here that are commercially available.
Sure.
And that they're providing. I think that's where the labels are a little bent out of shape. And they're saying, okay, you shouldn't provide those. Why the Internet Archive isn't willing to just say, hey, okay, we'll take those down until the copyright comes out.
Let's put those on a thumb drive in our closet.
Sure. My hunch is they're saying we want them all to be available, and also they're out of closets, because I don't know if you know this. Internet Archive has already stored everything else in their fucking closet.
Sure.
So their closet is full of shit. Every time I find some store at the Internet Archive, like for example, listeners, if you've ever paid attention to our vintage ads, all of those come out of Computer Shopper that are out of the Internet Archive.
All of those pages of those Computer Shoppers have been scanned.
Them all in. I've talked to the archivist at the Internet Archive who did this work, and let me tell you, first of all, he's batshit insane. Second of all,
passionate about it. He's passionate.
Really happy he exists because,
of course.
I mean, as an aside, he was like, "Yeah, I saw an eBay auction for like $3,000 of every Computer Shopper that was ever printed, so I had to go buy that." And I'm like, "Wow, I thought I had the disease pretty bad, but you are way worse than me. You were like stage 4.
His shipping costs had to be higher than the cost of the purchase of the magazine.
This is what's amazing. These archivists, there's like some, not so dark corners of the internet where they hang out. He got some other guy went and picked him up.
Oh, that's great.
On a trailer and drove him from Ohio to where I think, Florida, wherever he lives. It's a community of folks that just wanted this to exist. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
It's cool that it does. It's really cool that it does.
So here you've got this sticky wicket of where preservation sort of crosses over with I guess monetization or commercial control. I do think it's reasonable for there to be an archive of where everything could exist so that people could do a modicum of research. If this was chewing into the revenue of these copyright holders, I'd be very grumpy.
It's not an issue of revenue.
I would really be grumpy about that. I know it's not.
If I own copyrights and I want them to not be distributed, I have the right to not distribute them.
I understand. My point is, if this were truly digging into the revenue, I would have a problem. I understand you don't. I understand that's not the law.
Yeah.
But I would have a problem. And because it's not, I'm like, all right, there's this weird little gray area. People aren't not going to Spotify to stream a song to go here, right? We're talking about orders of magnitude difference in playback.
Sure.
Even I think in this article here that we found in ours, they talked about how Sam Trust, a music publishing sort of veteran who oversees the Doris Day estate.
Right.
He said that the amount of damages the labels are looking for, which is like $400 million plus, or I think $700 million with these additional claims. He's like he'd be surprised if it was actually $40,000 worth of damages. I understand that damages aren't the only part of the equation. I totally get that.
Correct.
But I really don't think you've got a bunch of people that are saying, I would even go as far as to say of the 3 million recordings, probably pretty close to zero are going to say, I don't want these out there. Like, no one's saying that.
A small number, but they're listing, they are labels who do have these rights, who hold these rights. And they're saying these 400 songs or whatever it is, that number is going to grow. But these songs you cannot put out. These are actively owned by us. We have these publishing rights or whatever.
I understand they have the rights.
The copyrights.
But it's not because they don't want the music to be out there. Right? I would say close to zero of the 3 million that exist.
It doesn't matter if they do want it to be out or not. It's theirs to decide.
I understand it's theirs to decide, but then if you're going to use that as part of the compensation calculation to say, well, they might have not wanted them out there, it'd be like, no, you can't use that as your compensation calculation. Had they made money elsewhere that you infringed upon, all right, I got some argument in that. That's the easy
That's the easy way to come up with evaluation. Absolutely. But yes, I mean, an individual could say, or an estate of an individual could say, no, we didn't want these to be out there.
It is, okay, set aside how how the Internet Archive has approached this. It does seem valuable to have a single source for really just all music. Like if you want to go do some research on this, it does seem very valuable to have a source where you can go say, I want to pull every song via some metadata to be able to do some research. I don't think that exists.
No.
It does seem like that should exist. And again, I'm not saying that's what the Internet Archive may say their desire is. I don't think they've achieved that here. but that might be where they're trying to go.
Obviously, they can put up everything except things that have active copyrights, and they're welcome to do that. These older songs,
sure,
they've bought collections of records from people, 78s that various estates had up in an attic somewhere that were gathering dust, doing nothing, and as far as they know, in some cases, no other copies of this music exists.
Yeah,
the masters are long gone. This is all they have.
How do you, as a pro copyright guy? How do you, and not to say that I'm not a pro copyright guy, but I'm not at the level that you are. How do you view the Internet Archive's work with the Wayback Machine on the web? Because all of that is copyrighted content that they are, quote, stealing.
It's a whole nother issue, especially when you get into things like the New York Times, who does actively exercise their copyrights.
Set aside the New York Times and WAPO and publishing, just like websites at large, like what pets.com looked like, right? Or what the front page of the San Francisco Chronicle looked like 20 years ago. That is copyright infringement, right?
Chronicles, exactly. Chronicles the exact same problem with the New York Times.
I was trying to
go back. If the owners of pets.com don't mind you archiving their website, great, archive away.
But if they do mind it, then you think it shouldn't exist.
Then it shouldn't exist. It's theirs.
But then there's no archive, right?
You can put it up once the copyright is no longer valid.
Sure. In 150 years.
It's not 150.
Hey, did that guy from pets.com die yet? No, fuck.
Take it down.
You gotta wait another fucking 100 years after he's dead. Let me tell you.
But you don't have the right to just put it up, without having.
You don't have the right. Yeah. But what do you think it should be? Like if I gave you,
if I could reinvent copyright entirely,
give you the pen and you get to write, you by yourself get to write what copyright law should look like. What would you write down?
That's a great question.
This is like
such
3
a good
episodes
question.
worth.
Yeah. On a website, what should the copyright last for? 20 years. I mean, should be some nominal amount of time.
I mean,
and by the way, you should have to check in the owner of the copyright, or there should be some central database so that we actually know who these people are, and they should be pinged every 10 years. Is there still someone here who owns this?
Well, if you're saying 20 years, the maximum copyright, 10 might be a little far off. I think you probably the point is you want check-in and you want a reduced copyright period.
For web pages, right? For songs, no.
Oh, just for web pages. I was just saying for copyright. Okay. Oh, wait, hold on. Why are songs different?
Oh, songs are very different.
Oh, please enlighten me. How is the creative work of a song different than the creative work of a website? Hold on. I got my listening ears.
A song is more along the lines of a novel. There's more to it than just copy to sell dog food.
Of course, there's so much JavaScript embedded in a song. Pages and pages.
A very, very old. I don't know. Make it the same if you want to. You're right. I am making a qualitative decision.
Yeah, because you're saying
terming it based on the qualitative decision,
and that more creative work in a song.
That may not be fair. Yes.
Well, that's fascinating to me. I've never thought about copyrights being different based on the type of content. That's never really crossed my mind.
Yeah.
I gotta believe if you take anyone steeped in one medium or one sort of type, they're going to view theirs as the harder one, right?
I think that's probably true. And it does get very complicated,
of course,
if you start breaking it apart into types.
So let's just say we keep it all the same. Let's go back and revisit the same question. How would you rewrite copyright law? What are the 3 big things you would change if you had a magic mighty pen?
I do think you have to have some sort of periodic check-in. Okay. Let's say every 10 years. Okay. If you're the owner, you need to check in with our central database of who owns what.
And why? Why do you have to check in every 10 years?
We need some sort of ping to know that you're still out there.
But what if you're
still alive?
They just cut you a check and it keeps clearing. Isn't that enough?
Oh yeah, I guess. I mean, is the check is going to a corporation? The check the check will always clear in those cases. Part of it is because the copyright owner can change.
Totally. You can sell it.
This is going to get complicated.
Real
after
fast,
35,
yeah.
Well, you can sell it, yes, but also after 35 years, if I write a bunch of songs and I sell them off to somebody, after 35 years, I can get them back.
Is that only for music or does that apply to all copyright?
Great question. I don't know the answer to that, but it's definitely a part of music. It's part of film too, so for sure.
If I was a developer on WordPerfect and I'm like, hey, WordPerfect 5.0, I demand it back.
That's different because that's work for hire.
Oh, that is considered. Yeah, you're right.
It's not the same thing if it's a work for hire.
Work for hire. Because work for hire, you've got a contract and then you've given up that right forever. Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
So this would be more the case. You can still have software that's not work for hire, right? That you did yourself. You own
of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And you sold that.
Yeah. And then you sold it and then you get it back.
So basically there's got to be there's a whole bucket of shareware providers
100%
who now could go back and get their I want my dial-up modem back.
Oh, sure.
And I'm pretty sure the guy on the other end would be like, all right, how about $10?
Sure.
No? How about $8? Give me something. Oh, man, that's
the thing really after funny. 35 years. If you want it before 35 years, if you want it at 31 years, you need to go make some negotiation, and that number is going to get smaller and smaller the closer you get to 35 years.
Yeah, basically you probably take whatever you could profit off in the next 4 years, cut it by 20%, and that's your number. All right, so you'd require check-in.
Yeah.
You'd make the duration shorter. Did you say that, or am I impressing that upon you?
100 years it is now? 100 years is what it is now?
100 years after death or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, some term after death. 100 years just sounds crazy.
I mean, do you feel like the necessity of copyright protection, especially specifically as it applies to duration, should be viewed differently now than it was 60 years ago?
No, it's the same thing. If a corporation makes a feature film and they put hundreds of millions of dollars into it, they're going to want to be able to reap the benefits of that motion picture for a long time.
But it seems like you've got like the tail is a thinner tail than it was 50 years ago. Like it took longer.
What does that mean, a thinner tail?
If you think about the distribution, the graph of revenue, right?
Yeah, for sure.
The hump was farther out, and then you had this sort of fat tail previously. Like you just kept making money on it because people hadn't seen the movie, and you had some mark you haven't gotten to. Now you reach the whole world in about 12 nanoseconds.
Sure.
And then I feel like you could argue that you can, if the view of copyright, I know it's not, you're going to yell at me for this, if the view of copyright is to give somebody protective rights to be able to monetize that content to its, quote, fullest extent, you can do that faster now than you ever could in a previous point.
For sure.
So then should the law reflect that? Should that become a shorter period of time? I would think yes, but I can certainly see some arguments against that.
Although things become valuable again.
Totally.
I mean, you do have songs that come back and they have a second life. Eminem does uses one of your songs as part of his rap song, and suddenly Dido's a huge hit, of course, huge success again. Yeah, of course.
I actually think that, to me, I love that you give that example. I think that is an awesome example of copyright working well.
Yeah,
right, where you can do that, and it seems like now better than any previous point in time, artists have realized the value in that and allowed that to happen. I think about was it Ocean Spray? Like that random guy who was drinking a bottle of Ocean Spray, right? And playing Fleetwood Mac. And
please put the link to that video in the show
Fleetwood
notes.
Mac, classically could have been like, hey, fuck you, tear it down, DMCA.
Yeah.
No. And then you let it run. What happens? A whole new generation's introduced to Fleetwood Mac.
Sales is what happened.
And Ocean Spray was like, we're going to give that motherfucker a car full of Ocean Spray. The best possible move ever. I'd love to see. And Dido's another great example of that, where nobody knew who she was.
Before we leave Fleetwood Mac, Mick Fleetwood made a video of himself supposedly skateboarding while drinking Ocean Spray. So doing everything beat for beat the same exactly as the guy did. Now, he's in the back of a truck because he doesn't really skateboard.
Sure.
But it looks great.
Sure. I mean, we would like Mick Fleetwood to not have a broken hip. So if we could just do that with a truck and a dolly or something to the camera, I'm sure we could figure it out. He lives in LA, I think, right?
It's done. They did it.
Okay, we'll put those links in for sure. You do want like a repository for this stuff, right? I think we can both agree at least on that.
Yeah.
I think the access to the repository is where you and I differ.
Right.
You still believe, because the law states that ultimately the copyright holder has ultimate and final decision of what happens with that content.
The say-so as to whether or not you put it out. Yes.
Yeah, I got to get smarter about this exception especially for older works under this Music Modernization Act, where you can provide them as part of a research library. I'd love to get more specificity around that.
Sure.
That might be what the Internet Archive is really basing their retort on and looking for clarification in that.
They're going to go to court over this whole thing. We're going to find out what all that means. All that definition is going to come out.
For as much as I love them, they're probably going to lose because they just don't have the pockets. Even the EFF isn't going to have the pockets. You hope they come to some agreement to just say, look, I don't think the music labels really want to crush the Internet Archive. Maybe they do.
Of course not.
They've got good reason to want to crush it, but I don't think they're there going, we're going to put these guys out of business.
No.
I don't think that's what they're trying to do.
They would love for a source to exist of music that is out in the public domain, that is now out in the public domain. I don't think anybody can argue with that.
Sure.
That's a fantastic thing. I want to back up one second, though.
Okay.
Tell me about Eminem's lawsuit against the Music Modernization Act.
Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah, he sued Spotify over, there was this period of time where, as part of the Music Modernization Act, where there were, I think, 3 separate laws. The Music Modernization Act is one of them. They're all passed at the same time. One of these prevented claiming of fees before a certain time. I think it was January 1st, 2018.
Yes.
And Eminem his publishing arm sued Spotify and also made the claim that the Music Modernization Act was, I think, like unconstitutional, that this couldn't exist. I don't know what came of that case. I need to find out what came of that case.
That's part of their suit.
Yeah, but it was part of that suit. There was another holding company that owned a bunch of rights. I think like Rivers from Weezer and Tom Petty and Stevie Nicks.
Yeah.
And they also sued Spotify, of course, the day before this law went into effect. And they settled out of court with Spotify for some dollar amount. So there have been several, let's just say, bits of unhappiness around how Spotify's treated us. I don't think Spotify's done a great job. I think Spotify's certainly got its share of...
They've done a great job of pissing off musicians.
Well, yeah, but this comes back to like the big picture where I just go, man, the folks that sort of control the mass of media. So I'm thinking film, I'm thinking TV, I'm thinking music. They should have been the ones organizing better access and better platforms and ultimately own that. And they classically haven't. Like, we didn't have digital audio at scale until Jobs forced it upon the labels with iTunes.
Well,
it didn't really exist before that, right? It was all like wrapped in DRM. You had Sony, who did a terrible job with the Kinect.
Yeah.
Those were all stillborn. And Jobs like, no, here's how we're going to do it. And you're not going to like it, but here's what we have to do. That should have been owned by the record companies, not by fucking Apple.
Sure.
Why does Apple get a 30% take?
What happened was people were getting music for free.
Of course.
And so Jobs was presenting the labels with the idea, what if we, did $1 a song or whatever the number was? It's a small number because you're used to selling albums full of music.
And they're like, absolutely not. We need whole albums. We need to sell whole albums, right? They pushed back hard.
No, they had to make a deal. He couldn't sell those songs until they made the deal with him.
But they didn't have a choice. They wanted to get on that platform, right? My point is they should have owned all. They should have done all of that first.
They should still own it. They should still own it. It's not too late.
But you missed it. Like, you missed it with digital with Apple. You missed it with streaming with Spotify.
Yeah.
My presumption is now, like, I really thought after the whole Napster, and I'll bleed Napster into the iTunes, sort of, those were 5-ish, 8-ish years apart.
Yeah.
I kind of thought, I'll call that one incident. I kind of thought you'd learned your lesson and you would control your content and control the output of your content in a forward-looking way.
Yeah.
Nope. Right? I mean, I think the best examples of this we've seen are probably like Hulu. And now you've got the streaming platforms. I think the streaming platforms are doing a much better job with episodic content. Sure. They have realized it, but like it still has its share of issues.
I think artists today, right now, tonight, should start their own streaming platform that they own.
But I'm like, my hunch is there'd be enough infighting that they'd be like, well, I'm a bigger name than you. I should get 20% of the revenue. And it's like, no, stop.
Well, there's going to have to be some math around that for sure. Yeah. But that math has to be done when a band goes and plays a concert. When they're because not all band members, when Paul McCartney is with Wings, he hasn't been with Wings since the 70s. Sure. But
hey, let's use a timely example.
Yeah, sure. I'm right up to date with my references. When he's with Wings, he's got 3 people with him who don't sell a single ticket. And he's the guy who sells all the tickets. So who should get more of the money? I don't know how they divided their money.
I'm assuming the way those work is he's paying them a fixed, like, he just says, you show up, you do this. Like, this is what happens.
Sure.
I'm assuming.
Try to think of a band where the band is getting a proportional of the gate, however they want to do it. There ought to be some formula for figuring out. I'm sure there is some formula that music managers figure out for. This is the guy who sells the tickets. Sure. You sell 2 tickets each.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me. The whole thing seems Byzantine at best.
I mean, we're talking about Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac, when they're missing a band member, they actually have due to death. They're missing a band member. So you can't do anything about that. Again, my references are right up to date.
Right, all current.
If you have a band like Fleetwood Mac, you have a lot of stars in the band. Yeah. Each person there draws. I mean, Mick Fleetwood might draw the fewest of all the band members. Sure. And yet he's the guy who started the band.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but this is well outside of my expertise. Draw is just one component, right? Like, you've also got to make the actual music.
Yeah, but you got to sell the records. I mean, when you're talking about, I'm not talking about the sale of the records, but I'm talking about when you go on tour, Mick Fleetwood's not going to sell that many tickets, but Stevie Nicks will.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. But also, like, if the music doesn't sound the same without the other person, that seems like it's important.
It's all part of your negotiation. It's going to be all part of your negotiation.
This whole thing is like just pretty nutso to me, how it all works and how it's negotiated and what happens up front. And, all right, so you're a band, and then your first album, you bring in a drummer afterwards. You're just so happy to join the band. Yeah, I'll take whatever. And then fucking 15 years later, you still got some shit deal. And they're like, buddy, you're the drummer we brought in. Like, we can just replace you with a fucking machine.
Sure.
Like they take a shit deal, but they're a core part of the band. I don't know how it's all supposed to work. This is So outside Max.
Unless the drummer turns out to be Phil Collins. Well, he goes off and makes his own record.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the one guy you probably of all. Look, if you're starting a band and you get Phil Collins, don't piss him off because I feel like he's probably going to make.
I don't think they pissed him off. There happened to be another room that he liked where they were recording, and he asked Richard Branson, "Can I make a record in this room?"
Sure.
Richard Branson said, "Sure, but if you do, I get to distribute it." And he was like, "Yeah, sure, great." And away they went. The record was really good.
And it was in the air.
Face value. No,
that was his first record, wasn't it? Was that his first solo record?
It sounds like it. Again,
your first solo record is like a forever
huge multi-platinum classic.
100x platinum, plays forever. Like every generation knows it. Yeah. Fantastic. Referenced by Eminem, by the way, in his songs.
And the Internet Archive wants to give that away for free.
Give it all away for free.
How dare they?
The problem is if you're like, look, we're stuck on a deserted island and there are two boats, and one boat takes you to like forever copyright land, and the other one takes you to chaos copyright land where there is no copyright. I get on the chaos boat. That's the boat I get on. If those are my two choices, I'd rather just burn the whole fucking thing down and figure it out because it sounds like such a mess. I mean, there are a few things that I think are more unnecessarily logistical hurdles than our tax code.
And it's the copyright system.
I'm pretty sure that copyright is up in that, above that threshold.
Now, specifically, are you addressing the copyrights before 78 or the ones that, because all the rules are different
But why?
Every group of years.
I understand that they're different. I get it. But like, shouldn't.
Because we changed them as time went on. We changed the rules.
I totally get it. And that's what I want to do now. I want to change them again. I want to compress everything. I want people to be incentivized to create and share content. I want them to have enforceable rights. I'm for those things, right?
Yeah.
100%. I'm also for other things like preservation of things that are released. So not just I wouldn't call it reduction too, but like where it ends in public domain. I think that's really good. But you also need some mechanism by which to maintain things so that they become public domain.
Sure.
I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure how to incentivize people for that.
A hard drive in your closet.
Well, like
I think we went over this.
Fuck. You know what? I've never looked at your closet at your house. Next time I'm there, I'm looking at
it's just full of hard drives.
It's just like, what is this? This is the Constitution, quote, original? What does that mean? Just everything.
It's on a hard drive.
Magna Carta, original.
Did you ever see the Dick Van Dyke Show when she opens the closet and all the walnuts fall out? That's my closet with old hard drives.
At least you're smart enough to put yours in the closet. I'll leave mine out in the open. If we were at my house right now looking at my desk, there's probably at least somewhere between, I'd say 0 and 3 NASs on the desk right now. And I can't even tell you like a dozen other forms of media storage. SD cards, USB keys. Fortunately, none of them have like single source of shit on it, but like I'll just pick it up and be like, wonder what's on this. And I plug it in and I was like, oh, that's an Arch Linux image. Oh, I should keep that. Just like, why? Just fucking download a new one and make it. What good
especially something like that where the image is changing all the time. The moment
you put it on that key, it's already
You're
old.
out of date,
like,
right?
Why? I mean, there's a good update mechanism, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, I mean, I'm a keeper. I think that's really what I'm getting at.
What's with all the recent SpaceX crashes, explosions, and delays?
Yeah. Well, you tell me. It's
an uncharacteristically messy start to the year for the world's leading spaceflight company, SpaceX. The company's most recent delay, the launch date for the NASA mission to survey the sky and better understand the early evolution of the universe, comes Monday night. The launch window for the Sphere-X mission opened on February 28th, but a series of problems with integrating the rocket payloads have delayed the mission nearly 2 weeks. Now, explain to me, if you have trouble integrating the rocket and the payloads, did you just not measure correctly?
Yeah, they didn't bolt it up. They're using Velcro. I think that was the problem.
How exactly did that happen?
I don't know. I mean, we've had some rocketologists on this show before. I feel like we should have them on again or have some other rocketologist on. These sound like very complex systems. And like also when these things divide by 0, it's not like a Control-Alt-Delete. Like you have a massive event that happens over the Pacific Ocean. So that's
the Falcon 9 that launches the Starlink satellites in low Earth orbit. One of the rocket's 9 engines suffered a fuel leak during ascent due to a lack of oxygen in the thinning atmosphere. The fuel leak did not preclude the satellites from reaching orbit. But when the first stage returned to Earth, it caught fire after landing on a drone ship, toppling over.
Again,
this happened again in August. This happened previously in August.
Not a rocketologist, but I think that's bad. I think fuel leak, typically speaking, in any environment, bad, with one exception.
Not to be recommended, sure.
There is one exception where I know a fuel leak is not bad. The SR-71. Leaked fuel on the ground because the seams hadn't closed. They had to get the thing up to speed and get it up to temperature. and then all the panels would swell from the heat.
Oh.
And then it would seal up and not leak fuel. Yeah, put that into your 1960s engineering bucket. They're just like, oh yeah, no, it leaks. You're like, what do you do? Go faster. You're like, wait, what?
That seems really counterintuitive.
Are you sure?
Flex Seal. They could have fixed the whole thing with a can of Flex Seal.
What else is nuts about this, though, is like, okay, so they've had, SpaceX has had 2 failures here in the past couple of months.
Yeah.
But what that part of the story doesn't tell you is they've also had like this calendar year, and at the time of this recording, it's March, they've had something like 24 successful launches.
Yeah.
That is bananas. That is more than the entire rest of the world, including China, combined, who I think has had like 19.
If you don't care about safety and you don't care about, the pollution and things that you're throwing up into the environment, which SpaceX over time we've seen, they just don't care about these things. Yeah, well, you just keep launching satellites. I'm telling you, one of these satellites one of these days is going to collide with something, and you're going to have so much space debris.
Okay, let's
you're going to have a disaster of epic proportions.
Let's double click on what you just said there, because you put a couple things into the good old archive, the nonsense archive. If we expand that, first of all chemicals that get you into space are fucking terrible. I don't care if it was what.
Yes. Yes.
You do not want to be underneath that when that is dumping it into the air. I don't think SpaceX is any different. I don't think they're using any worse.
No, of course.
However, and they are launching more, so therefore you are getting more of that. But I wouldn't throw them under the bus for that. I think what you're referencing is the times that they've either launched or had faulty launches, aka things have blown up.
Yeah.
And they've done this in areas where it's made a real environmental impact. And
they haven't cleaned up after themselves.
Yeah, that's bad. So let's set that over onto one side. The space junk, that is a more interesting problem to me. I do suspect that we're being a little loose with how we're putting things into the air. And what I do know with reasonable certainty is once you have one collision, you're much more likely to have another. And if you happen to have 2 or 3,
of course,
then you just have a field of junk. And then your Starlink that you so happily bought at Costco for $500 now doesn't work.
Worthless.
Like you just have a paperweight. And then what happens? So I'm still a fan. Like, I mean, in my own home, I've got really, really fucking good Wi-Fi everywhere, and I still plug a cable into anything that has an RJ45 jack on.
Of course.
So to me, and the reason I say that is like, okay, you got Starlink, some variables. If I'm in, rural US, I still want to have fiber to my house. I know that's a really hard order.
Yeah.
I can get fiber to my house in fucking Los Angeles, but I'm going to pretend like if out in Bozeman, I can get fiber. Probably a better chance there than me getting it here. But the point is, I want fiber to my house. I want to have a connection, a terrestrial connection that will be way less susceptible to things like space junk fields that take everything out.
Sure. You don't want the entire internet to go down.
No.
Because 2 satellites, a Chinese satellite and a Starlink satellite, collide. And then the whole thing, and then all of low Earth orbit is useless.
Yeah.
Because there's so much debris floating around.
How will I then infringe on the copyright holdings of so many artists on the Internet Archive if the internet is down?
You have to do it the old-fashioned way with cables under the ocean.
Where I just snorted. The old-fashioned way where you send me a mixtape? Is that what's going to happen? Jeff, it's been 2 days. I've infringed on 0 copyright holders. Please make me a tape under the guidance of personal use and send it to me, please.
It's not personal use if I'm sending it to you.
So look, SpaceX hasn't commented on this. What some folks are presuming is that you've just got the engineering has been focusing on Starship, and you've sort of put the bigger brains on Starship right now, which I don't necessarily think is the wrong answer. They're trying to do a lot.
Of course.
And Starship is no small feat. And I don't even want to say if they figure it out. I do believe they will figure out Starship. I think they're really close. And folks like to jump around and dance every time they have a failure. But I'm just like, oh man, I don't know. They because of some of the things that they do, which I don't necessarily agree with, it has allowed them to propel themselves forward, pardon the pun, faster than normal. So I think you're going to see Starship fly successfully very soon, like probably this calendar year. I don't know their schedule, probably this calendar.
So you think it's okay that Tesla crashes into telephone poles all the time?
No.
Because it's better that they move forward faster than more carefully?
No, because that's not forwarding them faster. That's a great example of where it doesn't
pulling
work.
us all backwards. It's giving autonomous driving a bad name.
Well, especially the guy that fucking hit the goddamn telephone pole. It's pulling him backwards.
Yeah, well, sure.
No, this is where I think those two are not comparable. I feel like if you go, well, I'm going to go a little faster here and do this thing and maybe I shouldn't. All right, maybe. I don't think it's right. I'm not saying it's right, but it does have the added effect of moving it along faster. My hunch is if you get anybody, quote, inside at Tesla to talk about their autonomous vehicle program, they would claim that they're getting more data by running these systems, and that would allow them to make a better system. That's what they would claim.
Well, they are getting data where they weren't getting data. I don't know
if they actually are. Are they actually pulling this data back and doing something with it? Is it really providing value? And if the answer is yes, they are. What the fuck is your time frame?
If the answer is no, they should be. Yeah, if the answer is no, they should be.
I think the answer is no, maybe. And there's so little in that business to prop it up that they just they can't go backwards because they're not going forward. So if you were to regress on any of these things, I really do think you would notice, more people would notice the emperor has no clothes. I mean, there's not been a new model in that company for how many years? I don't know, it's like 7 years. I guess you got the Cybertruck. You got the Cybertruck, sure, the meme thing. But they're not innovating. They don't seem to be innovating. And I do think self-driving, autonomous vehicles, L4 could be a great saving grace for them. They seem to be farther away than anybody.
And they seem to be slipping farther and farther back. I mean, the more publicity you get about...
Yeah, I'm not sure they're slipping. I mean,
sales are declining precipitously around the globe.
For various reasons. I don't think
there may be more reasons behind
I don't think they're falling back per se. I think everyone else is progressing forward, and they're not.
Their numbers are actually way down.
Oh, their numbers are sorry.
Oh, sales.
I'm talking about AV progress, specifically autonomous vehicle progress.
Yeah, of course.
I just feel like that's been they're on to the next thing that looks interesting. That's what I feel like. I don't even know what that next thing is.
I don't care if they ever come out with another body style. I don't care if they ever update any of these new models. I honestly, truly don't care until they fix the safety issues.
Yeah.
A Tesla parked in a parking lot and someone accidentally backs up into it, and it makes hardly any effect on the car that backed up into it, and the Tesla looks like somebody crumpled up a ball of tinfoil.
You've just described every vehicle on the planet, including an Abrams tank, when it hits my Excursion. When it hits my Excursion, I'm just like... Oh yeah, that's not a problem. It's it's
a scratch,
not even a scratch. I'm just like, oh, you knocked off some of the rust. Thanks, man.
Whatever those Tesla body panels are made of, whatever those panels are made of, it's just the smallest little hit, and those things they just look like a disaster.
You don't even need the hit. I mean, my favorite. I see these probably I'd say once a week. There will be some Model 3 or Model S on one of the sedans driving on Ventura Boulevard with a wheel arch that's just 90 degrees off to the side, flapping in the wind. And I'm like, what the fuck? And people have been like, oh, I try to get it fixed. They won't, I can't get into the service center. So I just leave it. I'm just like, awesome.
Great.
Cool car.
Cool.
That looks great.
Our last story on this very strange, truncated episode of nonsense. And still, we're going to stay on autonomous cars.
Okay.
VW takes their robotaxis very seriously.
Yes.
They're testing them in the icy, snowy roads of Norway.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, when I read this, I immediately thought about the whatever the lead engineer was, who's been working on this thing for 6 years.
Sure.
He was like, "Where are you going to test the car?" And they're like, "Oslo." He's like, "Fuck." Why would you take it to like that? But I really,
because it's the hardest
one.
It's the hardest problem to solve.
I really appreciate that they're doing that. That they're like, oh, driving in Phoenix in the sun, that's fucking easy.
Sure,
you can see the lines on the road. They're like, how about we take all of that away?
Yeah,
and I'm really impressed by that. And they're doing this on their ID Buzz, which is a vehicle that, for completely separate issues, I was excited about.
Sure.
What most people don't know is that my wife has a infatuation for VW Bugs. She was excited about these, and they came out, and I was like, that looks terrible. When I saw it in person.
Well, okay.
We'll see. I'm still optimistic. Might still get one.
They will do new models. They will do those. Those will get updated.
But the AV, the autonomous ID Buzz, is really kind of compelling to me. There's something about a modern looking VW bus that is also autonomous that just breaks my brain. For folks who don't know cars, the VW bus is one of the easiest vehicles in the world to work on. You can literally pull the motor out with your hands in a parking lot.
Sure.
It's this air-cooled motor that just plops out the back. And for them to be potentially a leader in autonomous vehicles,
great.
It just makes my heart smile.
It's the best.
You've gone from one extreme to the other.
Of course.
And I think it'll be even more funny when, in typical VW fashion, they're going to get the sorted. It'll be a great autonomous vehicle program. They'll be doing level 5, crushing it. And then they'll publish the source code and it'll be 8,000 lines of Python. They'll be like, there it is. There's the whole thing. And you're just like, oh.
Super simple, very thoughtful.
Yeah. All air cooled. You're like, wait, what? Anyway. I think this is pretty interesting.
That was always the thing with the bug is every kid of my generation knew how to take that engine apart and how to fix things on it.
Because you probably were going to make it to school in that thing. It probably was going to fail, but it was so simple.
It was just so simple. It was, that was the great thing about it. By the way, talk about overcoming your origin story.
Yeah. Volkswagen?
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
it's the Hitler car.
Yeah. Well, we got the little black guy with Dieselgate. That was not their best look.
That was later. But the actual origins of this thing.
Let me be clear. I'm not trying to put Dieselgate on the same level as Nazis. Okay, please put down your pen, dear listener. Don't write me a letter. But I'm just merely saying that they've made some mistakes along the way. But please carry on.
I think this is super impressive, and the fact that they're doing this in Oslo, Norway, and expecting to improve driving in any environment. This will improve their driving in every environment.
And they're doing this, I think, primarily on their own. They've had there's some sort of consortiums before. Most of those I think have been abandoned or given up. Like even Uber has punted their autonomous vehicle. I think they gave a check and some of their tech or all of their tech to Aurora, who's working on trucks now. And I love that
Aurora has taken themselves completely out of autonomous vehicles and moved to autonomous trucks, which is a much simpler problem.
Well, yeah, okay. Autonomous cars, I think. I mean, it's still a vehicle. Truck's still a vehicle.
Trucks are much simpler. What they're doing is mostly on the freeway.
Yes, agreed. Like that. When you say much simpler, you do have 100,000 pounds in there. So you would hope that it's also doing it really well.
You needed to do it well for sure.
But I'm optimistic.
There are plenty of companies doing it who are doing it quite well. In Nevada right now, there are autonomous trucks hauling goods from point A to point B pretty much flawlessly. You hear of almost no incidents.
Yeah, which I do think, I still believe in this. I think it's the future. I think what we've really found, though, is that it's not as easy as maybe the hype got us to believe, where we were, a year or two away. As it turns out, this is hard. This is a hard problem.
Autonomous vehicles generally. Yeah.
I mean, I think autonomy in any system, especially with humans, is hard. Like if you think about the computation you're doing per second while you're driving a vehicle, for most of us, it's a lot. Now, some of the people on the 405, they're doing one computation a second. I'm usually behind them. And that's fucking terrible.
With a pencil on the back of an envelope.
Oh, man. I'm just like, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm pro AV. I believe in this. I love that they're doing in Oslo. We should really go to Norway and record an episode inside a Volkswagen ID Buzz.
They're actually not only just in Norway, they're on the streets in Hamburg and they're in Munich.
Oh, cool.
They're testing in Austin, Texas. They're testing in all different kinds of places. But Oslo, Norway seems like a pretty tough test.
Every single place you just named is closer. I still want to go to Oslo. I feel like Oslo's the place to go.
We'll go. We'll
get Austin, Oslo, Oslo.
Basically, their only real competitor is Waymo. And I haven't heard of Waymo competing or trying to run taxi service in some place that's largely snow and ice.
You know what's fascinating about Waymo on this? So you bring this up here in this context. Waymo seems to be taking such a non-Google, non-tech approach to these cars. They seem to be so controlled and sort of slow and steady. They're not jumping out. They are just we're going to do this. It's going to take a long time and we're going to get it right. And that seems so out of character for where you would have expected.
It's the correct way to do autonomous driving.
Right? So I don't know exactly where that has come from or how it's developed over the years, that sort of mantra inside the business. But man, it does seem like the one that I would embrace. It does seem like the right one to me.
In particular for this, yes, because you've got human lives as cargo.
Of course.
For sure. All right, well, that is the episode. That is entirely it. It is short and sweet, and there's no music, and it's not fancy, but it's what we had this week because we're getting ready to go travel and all of that.
Did the music guys get the day off?
Even the music gets the day off.
What am I here for?
We are off next week while we travel. I am Jeff Parker.
I just need all these donuts.
You have to say your name. This is the part where you say your name.
I'm Stu Little, and not next week, but nearly every other week, we'll be here Thursday mornings for more nonsense. Please join us.
And then maybe we just hum out, just do a little bit of a tune of some sort.
This is and then, we do that. And then I happen to pick one that's not public domain. And then,
we're in huge trouble
for that.
All right.
God damn it. There's just no winning.
Thanks for enduring this production-free episode of not even having a control panel in front of me so I can't change or start music or do anything. But thank you for listening, listeners.
Are you humming Marvin Gaye? You're definitely getting sued now. You're definitely getting sued.
See you on the other side of travel.
Good luck.